Edgar Winter was born in Beaumont, Texas on December 28, 1946, when his brother Johnny was almost 3 years old. Like his brother, Edgar was born with albinism, making them very recognizable with their pale skin and white hair. Their father played sax in a jazz combo and was an amateur vocalist, singing in a barbershop quartet and the choir at their church. Following his dad's example, Edgar developed a keen interest in music as a child, and when he was 4 years old, he appeared with Johnny on a local radio show, harmonizing with his brother as Johnny played ukulele. Edgar was something of a prodigy, and he taught himself to play keyboards, sax, bass, guitar, and percussion. As teenagers, the brothers played in several rock and R&B combos, including Johnny and the Jammers, the Black Plague, and the Crystallizers. By 1968, Johnny had put his focus on the blues, and in 1968, he cut an album for a small Texas label called the Progressive Blues Experience. After Rolling Stone ran a piece on the Texas blues scene citing Johnny as a talent to watch, he suddenly had several major labels vying for his services, and after signing with Columbia Records, he enlisted his younger brother to join his band in the studio and on the road. Edgar's work did not go unnoticed, and he landed his solo contract with Columbia's sibling label Epic. His debut album, 1970's Entrance, confirmed he was a major talent with a musical worldview that encompassed jazz, R&B, and rock and roll, and the album featured a minor hit in his cover of J.D. Loudermilk's Tobacco Road. Edgar next formed a road band with a horn section, White Trash, and he took them into the studio for his second LP, 1971's Edgar Winter's White Trash. A live album from the group Roadwork followed in 1972 and included a guest spot from Johnny, as well as guitar work from Rick Derringer. White Trash came apart following the Roadwork tour, though Edgar would reassemble the band for the 1977 album Recycled. With Dan Hartman on bass and guitar, Ronnie Montrose on guitar, and Chuck Ruff on drums and percussion, he formed the Edgar Winter Group, and their 1972 album, They Only Come Out at Night, was a major commercial success, spawning a pair of hit singles, Frankenstein and Free Ride, and selling over 2 million copies. In fact, Frankenstein was one of the few instrumental songs of the 1970s to reach the #1 spot. The album also saw Edgar experimenting with synthesizers and their creative possibilities, and he devised a system where he could carry a keyboard controller around using a shoulder strap, much like a guitarist, allowing him free movement on stage. The keyboard setup would become one of his trademarks and was part of the shows he played in support of 1974's Shock Treatment, the second Edgar Winter Group album. The LP didn't feature a breakout hit and didn't sell as well as its predecessor. The group teamed up with one-time White Trash guitarist Rick Derringer for 1975's The Edgar Winter Group with Rick Derringer. Edgar would contribute to several of Derringer's albums in the 1970s. It was the final Edgar Winter Group LP, and before the year was out, Edgar cut a jazz-oriented solo record, Jasmine Night Dreams, which was his first for the Sony-distributed Blue Sky label, which was also Johnny's recording home. During his downtime from his projects, Edgar often contributed keyboards to his brother's albums, and the two teamed up for a joint concert tour, which was preserved on 1976's Together Live, which were highlights from the shows. After a short-lived White Trash reunion, which saw them play several opening dates on Lynyrd Skynyrd's doomed Street Survivors tour and playing sax on Meatloaf's breakthrough Bad Out of Hell album, Edgar reaffirmed himself as a solo artist with 1979's The Edgar Winter album and 1981's Standing on Rock, which included the songs Star Garbage and Martians, where he began indulging his interest in science fiction themes. Standing on Rock closed out Edgar's contract with Blue Sky, and for the next several years, his studio work was on sessions for other artists, including Michael McDonald on his 1982 album If That's What It Takes, David Lee Roth in 1985's Crazy from the Heat, and Nils Lofgren's 1983 album Wonderland. Edgar's next solo project was an unusual one, 1985's Mission Earth, which was a sci-fi concept album with all 8 songs written by novelist and Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard. More session work followed, with appearances on albums by Tina Turner on her 1989 album Foreign Affair, Leon Russell in 1992's Anything Can Happen, and of course Johnny Winter in 1992's Hey, Where's Your Brother? 1994's Not a Kid Anymore was a rock and R&B oriented set that found Edgar back on familiar ground, and 1996's The Real Deal saw him collaborating with a roster of friends and fans, including Jeff Skunk Baxter, Jermaine Jackson, Ronnie Montrose, and Rick Derringer. As for the other members of the Edgar Winter group, we'll start with Dan Hartman. Dan Hartman began his solo career in 1976 with a promotional album featuring songs from Johnny Winter and the Edgar Winter Group. He later achieved success with disco hits like Instant Replay and Relight My Fire. But his biggest hit came in the form of I Can Dream About You, which was released in 1984 and was featured on the soundtrack of the film Streets of Fire. Despite his popularity, his album White Boy was never released due to its departure from his previous work. Throughout his career, Hartman collaborated with various artists, produced albums, and wrote songs for commercials and soundtracks. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1994 at the age of 43 from a brain tumor, having kept his HIV status a secret. Winter's public profile got a boost when he appeared in a beer commercial that suggested he and the famously tan actor George Hamilton were twins, and it led to a new record deal with Rhino Records, which released Winter Blues in 1999. The following year, he contributed sax on Cinematics, a solo effort from Doors guitarist Robbie Krieger. One of Edgar's white trash tracks, Dying to Live, gained a new life when a sample was featured in the song Running, Dying to Live, a Tupac song produced by Eminem for the soundtrack to the 2003 documentary Tupac Resurrection. Edgar's next solo effort was 2004's Jazzing the Blues with Robin Ford, Hiram Bullock, and Greg Bissonette lending their talents. In 2006, he joined the 9th lineup of Ringo Starr and his all-star band for touring with his bandmates including Billy Squier, Sheila E., Rod Argent of the Zombies, and Hamish Stewart of the Average White Band. Edgar would stay in the group until 2011 and return in 2022. Despite his all-star band commitments, he found enough time in his schedule to complete 2006's The Better Deal, an Edgar Winter and Friends effort that included contributions from Todd Rundgren as well as a cover of Pink Floyd's Money. 2008's Rebel Road was a straightforward rock album that recalled Edgar's work of the 70s. He and Toto guitarist Steve Lukather brought out a live set in 2011, The Odd Couple Live, and in 2013, he popped up on Ponder the Mystery, a prog-influenced album from actor William Shatner. And going to another member that was once a member of the Edgar Winter group, Chuck Ruff was a musician known for his work with Sammy Hagar, performing on albums like Street Machine and Danger Zone, and contributing to songs like Bad Reputation featured in the film Up the Academy. Later in his career, Ruff continued to perform in Reno, Nevada with various bands, including the Chuck Ruff Group, the Max Volume Band, and Geezer Slaw. He dated Chrissy Pinkering in 1967, who later became a member of the Supreme Court of Nevada. Unfortunately, Ruff passed away in 2011 in San Francisco after battling a long illness, leaving behind two sons, Dustin and Damien. Ronnie Montrose had a prolific career in rock music, founding the band Montrose with Sammy Hagar on vocals in 1973. After Hagar left, Montrose released solo albums and formed the band Gamma. He also collaborated with other artists, such as playing lead guitar on Paul Kantner's album. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he continued to release solo albums and work with various bands, including reuniting with the original Montrose lineup for special performances. Montrose battled prostate cancer and struggled with depression before tragically taking his own life in 2012, and he is survived by his wife, children, and grandchildren. Rick Derringer's career spanned decades and encompassed various musical endeavors. He achieved success with his solo album All-American Boy in 1973, featuring the hit song Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo. Derringer collaborated with Steely Dan, Todd Rundgren, and Jim Steinman, among others, contributing to albums and playing guitar on tracks such as Making Love Out of Nothing at All and Total Eclipse of the Heart. He also produced albums for artists like Weird Al Yankovic and worked on projects like Barbra Streisand's Left in the Dark cover. Additionally, he was involved in the World Wrestling Federation's music albums, producing songs like Hulk Hogan's theme song Real American. In his later years, Derringer released Christian music albums, toured with Ringo Starr and his all-star band, and participated in various projects including collaborations with baseball players and anti-bullying campaigns. Despite legal issues and controversies, Derringer remains active in the music industry, touring and recording new material as of the recording of this video in March 2024. As of late, touring commitments and session work occupied Edgar Winter's time until he completed 2022's Brother Johnny, which was a tribute to his brother who had died in 2014. The LP features a who's who of blues talent, including Kenny Wayne Shepherd, John McVie, Warren Haynes, and Bobby Rush, as well as Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins and his sometimes bandmate Ringo Starr. And that's what happened to the Edgar Winter Group. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Give me some facts about the Edgar Winter Group that I failed to mention on this video, and let me know who I should do next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.